So as per usual, we are inside the Ableton project, as you can see. So this is a remix of my friend D'Angelis's track. May have mispronounced that as he is Brazilian. And the track name is Arterax. Again, probably mispronouncing that because I ain't got a clue what it means, to be honest. But I've been rinsing the original for at least over a year now when he sent it to me. It's received support from Mahoney, and then more recently we have received support on the remix from EDP at Sunwaves. So I'll insert a clip somewhere over here. So as per usual with these track breakdowns, I will play a bit of the breakdown, play a bit of the drop, and then we'll run through what's going on in the track and then run through a portion of the breakdown as well. Sorry to interrupt this video, but I just wanted to let you know that I'm now offering specialised one-to-one tuition online via Zoom. You can book in via my website, where you can also have a look at my other services, including mastering, mixdowns, mixdown and masters combined at a discounted rate, sample packs and templates. If you have any questions, just drop me an email within the forum or drop me a message on Instagram as well. I look forward to working with you and helping level up your music. Cool, so you get the idea of that track there. A bit different from some of the stuff I've made. As you may have noticed from the previous track breakdown, I'm really trying to incorporate a bit more life into my tracks, a bit more energy, so they're not necessarily just heavy underground rollers. They can kind of be played during the day, played in a warm-up set, or even like a peak time set. So I'm just trying to make my sound a bit more transferable or broader. So like I mentioned, this was a remix. Now this is the second remix I've done, so it's still fairly new to me how to remix tracks and stuff like that, but for me it's about incorporating the more well-known parts of a track and then putting your own spin on it. So before we even start working our way down through each individual element and what's going on, I'm going to break down the original elements. So when you go and listen to the original, which is the link is down below, so you can purchase or pre-order this, you can get a good idea of like how I've manipulated them to make this more of my own. So the first thing that is in it is obviously the vocal itself, which is this one here. It was so good as it was, there wasn't really anything I needed to do to that. I tried playing around the pitch and everything like that, but it was good enough as it was. So that was element number one of the original. Element number two is the bass line. The original is very, very stripped back. It's pretty much kick, clap, hat, bass line, a vocal, and some sound effects. There's not too much going on in it, but it absolutely slaps in a club. So I wanted to try and incorporate the original bass in there some way. So I've effectively made my kind of like signature bass hits, bass wobs and stuff like that out of the original bass line. And I've made sure at least on the end of every 4 bars, it follows the original melody. And it's come out really well. So let's kick it off by having a look at the low end. Really warm sub and a very chunky, thick top end to this one. So as we can see, it is 3 layers with the bass line. We've got a pure sub, which is just a preset from Operator. I have this 808 kick, which I've effectively turned into a little click, which just layers on top of the sub. Originally, the main bass was just this 808 kick, doing the low end work and the sub information as well. But I felt like when it came to the mix down, it was lacking a bit of weight and a bit of power. So I separated that and added the sub, which is above it on channel 6. Then we've got the mid and the top range, which is probably the standout part of the track. This really adds a lot of character and life to the track as I'm automating it throughout the track. And really sometimes a bit randomly, if I just turn on the automation line so we can have a look at it. You can see it's in sections and keeping it fairly flat, then upping it, then just bringing it up, down over certain bars, obviously bringing it up quite a bit in the breakdowns. But there's no method to this kind of madness. It's just what I would call the human elements. I'm just automating it when I feel necessary and not really worrying if it's a bit out of time because, again, that adds that human character to it. Because I know you lot are going to ask what the preset was, I will pull up sub boom bass. So the preset is bass sub os. This is a really nice preset as it is, but obviously I've just manipulated some of the settings so it makes it a bit more transferable to a top end bass instead of an actual bass. Processing wise on this one, to really give it some extra life and character, we've got the EQ, we have the UAD Brigade chorus, as I mentioned in the previous video. This is the best chorus that I've owned of recent times. Decimal 2, this is something I've been using a lot to help add a bit more top end, obviously bit crush the sounds that I'm using, and give everything a bit more of a rougher feel. Works really well on these synth bass lines or any kind of modular sound as well. Then we have the UAD LA2A compressor. Compression on any kind of bass is important, as we've been over in previous mixdown videos, but compression on a bass that has a lot of movement and opens up the filter is even more important. Because as we open up that filter in certain parts of the track, we're allowing more frequencies into the track. So the more frequencies there are, the louder it's going to get. So then what we're going to have is an increase in volume as we play around with that filter automation, which then makes it inconsistent and can come across overpowering in the track sometimes. So if you are having a bass line that you need to automate, just make sure you're compressing it. Compress it a bit more. It's probably better to have it a bit more squashed than to have too many dynamics in there. So like I said, that can really create quite a steep increase in volume. And then on the bus of the mixing, we are running with Infobase, which is from Slate Digital. This is effectively our bass, but from Slate Digital. Personally, I prefer it. I think there's a few more things to tweak in there, but I am going to do a bass video specifically, so I'll run through this one completely then. Bit more compression on the bass as a group to glue them all together, and then just a Fab Filter EQ. Kick, if you've watched my videos by now, you can guess what I've used. It is Chris Stussy 03. I don't think I'll ever get bored of this kick. Low end boxed off. Let's jump in and have a look at the drums. Really nice and clean, but there's quite a lot of movement going in there. So I'll show you how I've done that. We'll start with the claps. Claps, we have multiple layers. All I'm doing here is I've got my main clap. I have the clap stem from the original. I have a modulated clap every 4 bars. How I've created this effect is with tape delay. So this is really easy to do. You just need to turn the delay from sync to time and then bring it down to around 30 to 40 milliseconds. It's usually the sweet spot for that kind of effect. Then we have the clap layer effect. This is what's giving it a bit more life and a bit more movement. I previously talked about this in a video where you kind of get this up-down motion in the clap when you do this. So if I just play the layer and the main clap, you can just tell the tonality of it very, very slightly changes when the clap layers comes in. My method behind this is obviously to get a bit more movement and character into the claps itself, but it actually stems from a 909 clap. So the actual 909 instrument, when you record in a clap from a 909 drum kit, the clap actually changes very slightly in the tonality, and you can see this in an audio file. So I've just replicated that by using samples layered on top of each other. Other than that, we have a clap layer, which is the stem that I was talking about with the Enigma flanger on by Waves. Super subtle, but it's just adding a bit of movement in there. Like I keep on referring to, helps add character. Then we can jump on down to the hats. So we have several different hat layers here. We have an 808 hi-hat, a hi-hat from the original stem, a 808 open hi-hat, which was original stem from the remix, another variation of an 808 hi-hat. This one's there just to help add a bit more weight to it. Then we have a grooved hi-hat. So if we just have a look at the MIDI here, it's effectively playing on the 8th note, and then every now and again I add in some 16th notes just to help add a bit of groove to it, and like I said, a bit more movement, especially when combined with the Sound Toys effect racks with Powerman and Phase Mistress. Finishing it off with a 606 kit. I've been using the 606 gated hi-hats a lot in my tracks for the past year. Now I'm just trying to incorporate it a little bit more to create a bit more familiarity between my tracks. Then the rest of the drums, we just have them top loops. So quite a few top loops in here compared to what I would typically go for. So we'll start at the top. We have got a top loop from the Ike Sounds Cerso pack. This one's really good. I highly recommend that sample pack. And as you can see, I've literally just looped it over half a bar, then applied Effectrix, which is the Born in Italy preset if you were interested. And I have used the Filter Freak with the Band Chaser preset. This is then just glitching it out, making that top loop a bit more interesting. And then the bandpass filters from the Filter Freak is just giving it a bit more movement. Then we've got another top loop from the same sample pack. No effects on this one. Then we have one of the stems from the remix pack that I got sent. This again has Sound Toys on it, which is a Phase Mistress to give it some movement. And I've then topped it with the Enigma flanger again to give it even more movement. And another top loop from the Cerso pack. You can see I was really enjoying this one in this track. No processing on there. Finishing things off with this open hi-hat. Bog standard 909. So really we can sort of see that there's not too much necessarily, there's not too many hi-hats adding loads of groove on this one. There's just a lot of stuff getting modulated with phasers, flanges, filters, just to give it that character and that extra bit of depth in the tracks. So textures, we have the vocal just repeated. So this is the vocal from the remix pack, and I've just caught a tail of it, then put it on a loop, repeated it, heavily sidechained it, and sat it in the textures group. This is super easy to do, and you can pretty much do it with any vocal that you're working with within your own tracks. This was a sample from the remix pack, which I have applied beat repeat to give it some randomization, some more glitch to it, and Effectrix with Filter Freak, Echo Boy, and Micro Shift. All of these combined are just giving it some extra move. Then we've just got 2 texture loops, which are from some sample packs, and all of this is being sent to a send and return with Tantra and a tremulator on it. I often will do something like this to just help add a bit more character to my textures. In the one-to-one lessons that I do, I always talk about efficiency and bang for your buck. So it's very quick and easy for me to set up a send and return, put some effects on it, and run my textures through that. Gives it a bit more movement, gives it a bit more character, and doesn't make it feel like a series of loops stacked on top of each other. Going in to the glitch percussion, or just the percussion in general now, we have the typical Brendan James formula of some loops on repeat of 1 bar or less. Again, applying phaser flanger. MIDI slice loop. I then have this modular loop, which I've affected with some delay and the tape delay. Some more MIDI slices. And then we go into percussion, where I have a rolling rim shot repeated on the 8th note, stereotypically where the main hi-hat will land. A 707 rim shot that plays every now and again, and an 808 clav or clave that plays every now and again. Not too much with the percussion going on in this track. Main reason for that is because you want to always think about what you want to be at the forefront of your track. So I've made plenty of tracks in the past where the main elements are these randomized glitchy sounds that are playing off in the background. But for this track, I really wanted the bass line and the vocal to be the standout parts and at the forefront of the mix. So because of that, I knew I didn't need as many randomized glitchy sounds in there, because it'd just be too distracting and take away from what I want to be the standout part of that track. Going down the group now, we are going into the synths. So we have a variety of bass hits in here, whether they are samples or from sample packs. So we can start off with the top one. This is Subboom Bass. And the preset for you guys is the same as the bass. It is Sub Os. All I've done here is played around with the settings to make it a slightly different sound. I'm a big fan of doing this because then you're using sounds that are almost identical. Well, in a sense, it is identical. It is the same preset, but because I've manipulated the parameters inside the plugin and some of the effects on the chain, it actually comes across sounding like a different sound and something new, but it fits perfectly within the track. Going down again, I think we've got the same thing going on. Sub Os. There we go. So again, I've changed some of the parameters. I imagine I would have played with the envelope, the attack on this one, and I changed the tremulator within the Sound Toys effect rack. And this is affected in the breakdowns, as we can look here. So I've sustained the note and then played with the filter, which is automating here. And that just works as a riser to help push that track forward in that breakdown. As we looked at near the start, the bass hit from the original, the signature BGM bass hit, which I pitched down quite a bit in this track to fit with the key. We've got this Reese bass riser, which is from Femme Basso. If you guys haven't checked this out, I think I said it in the previous video, but this is one of the best plugins out there for about £12–15. If you like this minimal deep tech sound with bass hits, donks, and all of that kind of stuff, you guys are going to love this one. I've kept that a secret for long enough now for you guys to know about. And then stereotypically, we got the TB303 with some acid in there. Working our way down into the vocals now, we have a section where the vocal is looped with a large echo on it, a bandpass filter sweeping, because this is in the breakdown to help add a bit more tension, almost using the vocal as a pad. And what I've done to just kind of like stutter it up and make it a bit different from the original vocal that just played before it, is I've gone in and changed the preserve to the 16th and pushed down the transients. So effectively we snapped everything up to the 16th grid to make it really nice and tight, as you can hear there. Sounds like it's tremulated, like the Sound Toys effect that we've been looking at throughout this one, but we can do that in stock Ableton. Got the hook on a different channel just so I can change that with the volume, make that sort of stand out a bit and, you know, really cut through the mix. A reverb riser, which was from the remix pack that I got sent, and that's it really. You know, like I said, the vocal's great to start with, so there wasn't too much work for me to do with this one. Going down into the effects, we have quite a bit going on. We have all kinds of zaps going on here. As I've talked about in previous videos, collecting your sound effects before you start arranging really will speed up your workflow and make you work a bit more creatively as well. Whether you believe it or not, these sound effects do make a massive difference to the overall track. So if you just spend a bit of time searching for them before you actually start arranging, I can guarantee you will find better samples that will implement in the track better. Then what I've just done to vary these sound effects up is just change the pitch of them slightly. So as we can see here, this one's -6 and this one is on 0. Sounds like the same effect. Well, it is the same effect, but it's just slightly different pitched. Easy way of getting some variation in there. Then have some risers, some little vox hits, more risers, a filtered snare roll, we then have this drum sample, which was from the remix pack I got sent. For this one, I used Effectrix just to make it sound slightly different, and the PS22X by Waves, which is a stereo imager. As you can see, I've pushed it quite wide. So if I just turn these off, you can hear what it sounds like. So that was quite an iconic part of the original. And then this is something I did in this track, which I probably will do going forward in all my tracks now, which is have a bunch of sound effects that play continuously throughout the track, whether they're on the end of the 4-bar or on the 8-bar. Doesn't particularly matter, but it really is quite a nice touch for a track, which I've never really dabbled in before. I usually just put sound effects wherever they're really needed. They're just copied and pasted throughout the track every single time. Sometimes I may take them away because of breakdown, it needs a space and so on and so forth. But this was a really nice touch, and this is something I'm definitely going to do going forward. So there we go. That is the end of part 1 of this track breakdown. Make sure you stay tuned to Friday, where we're going through how I arranged this track.